meets relationship marketing. Real talk, real leaders, and real results. We're cutting through the noise to show how credibility, connection, and consistency builds brands that endure. So whether you're an overwhelmed digital marketer, a business owner trying to stand out, or a thought leader ready to just level up, welcome to the long game. Because building something that lasts takes heart. So let's welcome your host, Jeremy Knopf and Jessica Suter. Let's go. Yay, yay! It is Tuesday, which means it is long game day. And today we're talking all about sales. How do you feel about sales? If you feel awkward or that it's heavy, exhausting, and you just don't like trying to sell, you are not alone. Don't worry. But today we're going to be joined with a guest, Aleasha Bahr, the author and founder of the Black Sheep Sales Method, that's going to be talking about maybe the problem with sales is all because you just aren't selling the way that is aligned for you, the right way of doing sales, and some of the obstacles that we can overcome. But I'm excited for Jeremy and I to dive in with the one and only Aleasha Bahr. Welcome, Aleasha.
Hi, I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we are excited as well. I know we've met at Abundance Worldwide with Sean.
Yes.
Hosted the event last year, and he was also the guest on the show last week talking about the abundance mindset. And this is so aligned with the abundance mindset of growing your sales in 2026 and how you can do that and achieve more abundance. But I've just been in awe of your journey and how you show up and help people learn how to sell the right way. But I also love that you call it the Black Sheep Sales Method. So I would really love to hear from you. Like, how did this come to be? What is the whole Black Sheep Sales Method about, and what's the origin story?
Yeah. So, I mean, I always, I got into sales and I really was successful just by selling like a natural. So whenever you talk to someone who is naturally good at sales, you're like, what do you do? And they're like, well, I don't really sell. And everyone's like, cool. How do I imitate that? And so it's something that if it comes naturally to a person, they never had a reason to put words to. But whenever I had a marketing agency for a while, and while I had the marketing agency, I noticed that there was such a big gap in sales training for owners, for people who weren't your classic sales personality, but needed to sell their thing in order to make money and get their idea off the ground. And so I started doing sales consulting. And when I first started doing it, I didn't really know exactly what I was going to do. But I would talk to people about their offer and they would say, oh, okay. So I would say, this is what you do. And they'd say, oh, I really like how you said that. And I'd be like, okay, let me just write that down for you then. And I'd say, well, for your offer, and like, you're talking to this person, are you asking these questions? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, let me write those down for you too. Right. And then there started to be these patterns in the framework. So the same way that like status quo sales has the agenda setting and the permission to sell and the, silence after the investment and all of these different pieces, there's actually patterns in the Black Sheep Sales Method that are just less salesy because everybody's familiar with agenda setting now, and they're familiar with permission selling now, and they're familiar with the silence after the investment. And so it just feels like you're talking to a salesperson and it feels like pressure. So this is modeled after a more natural conversation. And it's for the person who's not the classic salesperson, who's charming and aggressive and pushy and just like a dog with a bone on the sale, like they're gonna get a yes. So as far as Black Sheep, I one day was talking to my clients and I was like, man, there was something that I said no to in my family and I got a lot of crap for it. And I was like, man, I'm just so tired of being the black sheep in my family. Like it's a bad thing that I just don't fall in line. Like that I just don't honor that. I don't want to do like that. This is toxic. No, and my client was like, me too. And I talked to a couple other clients and they were like, me too. And I was like, hold on. Because, in marketing, you're always trying to figure out who am I targeting? And I realized that a lot of the people I was working with also had this unique take on whatever they were doing that sort of pissed off their industry peers too. So it just made sense. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this a positive because it is a positive. And that's how it seemed to land with people. They really seemed to respond well to it. And it's hard just in the sales world where there's so much of the same thing. Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, the black sheep sales is the person who's not selling like a douchebag.
Love that.
So I've seen a bunch of different approaches to sales, Aleasha.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of cut my teeth on like early Tom Hopkins, if that gives you any idea.
Okay.
Got started with this, but I've seen, you know, that the Zig Ziglar, like those are all kind of like a standard 80s, 90s, 2000 bucket. And then you've got like Warren Claff with a completely different approach to it. So like, what exactly does your process look like compared to those? Because obviously each situation or each model has its own strengths and weaknesses. How does your approach differ from some of the things that people may be more familiar with?
Yeah. So I actually don't know Warren Claff. So I don't know what his approach is, but it's very different. I mean, could you tell me about it?
So he's the guy that wrote, what is it called? Pitch Anything. And basically he's got a specific way that he sets it all up. And it basically takes away the fear by saying, oh, well, this is exactly like everything else, but here's this one difference. And here's why it's going to change the situation completely, blah, blah, blah. And then presents all the information and then basically just steps back completely insouciant. And, you know, you let them come back to you. So it's almost kind of like, look, if you want it, great. If you don't, great. So it's a very different dynamic. Frankly, it's an approach I've never figured out how to make work in the world that we work in. But, you know, it's very different than the approach I've seen in the old school Tom Hopkins, Zig Ziglar type stuff. Yeah. So does that give you kind of a clear picture?
It does. So, I mean, total detachment from the sale is always going to be a good thing for you. However, whenever you start using it as a manipulative tactic, it just doesn't land the same. Like you have to actually be okay with it not being a fit. So the philosophy for black sheep sales is based on if it's a fit, it's a fact, and there's no selling involved.
Well, I like that.
Thanks. It's just
you should trademark that term, by the way.
I know. And I should trademark pitch weaving, which we're going to talk about later. Yeah. And authoritative empathy, which is also a cornerstone of black sheep sales. So it's about having an audience and an anti-audience. Because if you think about it, for example, Jeremy, with your PR company, there are people who are not a fit for PR. Oh. And there are people who are looking for leads in the next 30 days because PR doesn't do that. And so we need to have a transparent conversation about what your expectations are. And I also need to understand if you're going to be a nightmare client, because I don't want to be set up not to win. This should be a win-win. So the approach with black sheep sales is transparency. And that's a little different from what this Warren guy did. It's definitely different from all of the other authority-based, like manhandling people that you mentioned earlier. And then it's also a very collaborative conversation, which is very different. So usually the status quo sales conversation is like some discovery that almost sounds like an interrogation, like rapid fire questions. And you are not supposed to talk. You let the prospect talk. And if that prospect asks you a question, you say, you know what, there'll be time for questions later. I'm asking the questions now, right? And then you get to the, okay, now let me like sum this up. This is what you're looking for, blah, blah, blah. And that's what we do. Would I be allowed to share that with you? Well, yeah, that's why they're there. That's why that's why they scheduled the call. And then you go into this pitch where only the salesperson is talking. So at no point is it a collaborative conversation. And it makes it uncomfortable. Like, have you been in a sales conversation where you're getting rapid fire asked questions and you're like, you know, I want to know what the hell you do? Like that kind of feeling. So it's a lot more fluid, and it's really missing a huge opportunity to seed in what you do. Like if you're only talking about what you do in the pitch section, like that's a lot of pressure on one section where one person's talking and the other person's only listening, like kind of, because they're expecting you to be exaggerating anyway. And and they're just waiting for their turn to finally ask questions because they haven't gotten a chance the whole time. So it's just like not as effective, basically.
I love that. So it sounds like to me, when you've got the kind of getting all the info from them and then doing your pitch, there's a degree of imbalance there. And I feel like during the pitch, they're going to be kind of not as receptive. They're kind of like looking for, where's the red flags? What are they going to hard sell me on? All that shit. But your approach seems to me like, because there's more constant going back and forth, there's a little bit more connection there.
Conversation.
It mimics an actual conversation, like where two people are talking instead of this strange format that is so unnatural. And the questions you're asking, like in the back and forth, it is important what the back and forth is about. Like, we're not just sitting here shooting the shit. I'm getting specific information about what you're looking for and what your experience has been. And does this line up for you? And does this feel different to you than what you've tried before? And things like that are going to give you important information for the sale, because when you're just pitching alone, just talking away, basically to yourself, you have no idea if what you're saying is landing. And you get to the end and then you're like, does that make sense? And they're like, yeah. And then they ask a question that makes it clear that it did not make sense. Or you say, do you have any questions? Which is just so open-ended. You have no idea if anything you said landed.
100%. I love that you take that conversational approach. That's something we do at Now as well. We do a deep dive, like discovery questionnaire before they even have the conversation with us, right? And then so we can get some intel, start doing some research. But there's so much that's uncovered by just having a conversation. Like, what are you looking for? How can we best serve you? Like, what's your end goal? And then like how to frame what you're even trying to sell to the individual versus just already having something made up in your mind that you're just pitching out. I think that's what comes from the conversation and your approach to it, and feeling more natural. Then it doesn't feel like a pitch. It is definitely a conversation, a discovery before you can even write something up. So I love this method and how you've crafted it. And I'm excited to be working with you even more in doing this with our clients as well. But I would love to know for you or from you, you said in your book about pitch weaving. I would love to hear a little bit more about that and how that's transpired and how this connects to that conversation.
Yeah. So pitch weaving happens in the discovery portion of the conversation. So like we were saying before, that it is a missed opportunity. Like, people's guards are down in the discovery part of a conversation. They're not expecting to be sold. So being able to give them that insight into how your expertise would adjust their experience and their results. And you do it with empathy and insight is the formula. So a lot of times, and I say authoritative empathy, because we're not just going to wallow in how bad it's been and how you've tried so many things and it's been so expensive. We're not just going to sit there and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, it's so hard. Because that doesn't make anybody feel like buying, right? It's like, it is really frustrating when you invest a lot of money and you do the things that they say to do and you don't get a result. And a lot of times the difference is having something that is customized to you as opposed to a generic one-size-fits-all playbook that's being forced upon you. And then you can ask a follow-up question to that. Have you worked with somebody who's customized something to you before? So you're getting feedback on, because sometimes people just keep on rolling and they have had something customized to them. So that didn't land. And you need to say, well, what did they customize? And talk about it deeper. So I mean, the main reason that people don't move forward is the lack of clarity. And it's because they're assuming something about what you're saying and you're assuming something about what they meant instead of just clarifying.
Mm-hmm. So you've talked about the detachment side of things. Let's talk about what makes that so important, but also how do we get detached from it, right? Especially the newer entrepreneurs where maybe they're at a point where they don't have enough revenue yet. They're really trying to get out there and make things work. It's kind of hard for them to get detached in the way they need to be. So what advice do you have for folks?
Yeah. So, I mean, It's something that is easier said than done. I will say that the black sheep sales framework gives them more criteria for detachment. So knowing who your anti-audience is, who do I not want to work with, and being able to methodically go through that criteria with somebody. So like, how much time do you have a week to invest in this? And then you're able to say, oh, that's more than enough. Or you can say, okay, well, you're going to need at least this much. Is that realistic for you? So you can hear if they don't have enough time, then you want to be honest with that person that it's not a fit. So the detachment is around genuinely understanding if this is what this person needs right now. And if it's not, being okay with giving them a different resource. It's not so much this manipulative takeaway, like, well, I don't even think you can have, have you experienced that close where it's like, I don't even think you're serious or like a fit for this. And it's to get the person to lean in and then sell you on themselves or whatever. It's not that. It's genuine. It's like, hey, actually, I think before you invest in SEO, since leads are so important for you right now, you need to do some PPC first. And then when you get some sales coming in, I can, refer you to an SEO resource instead of just being like, we can do it all or whatever.
Yeah, I love that. That was something I learned very early on with starting Now Marketing Group, like starting with social first and realizing like that was not the end all be all, right, for clients. And they needed to have a home base, like a website first, and then doing some social and things like that. But also not taking on clients just for the revenue, because that can be a headache. Like if you take on the wrong clients, that's going to move you in the wrong direction, not the right direction that you're trying to go in. It sucks your energy, it sucks your resources, all the things. So I love that you say have a detachment from that and really set them up for success for the long term, and talking about like, hey, here's phase 1, then potentially phase 2, phase 3, and here's how we can work together, but you may need these building blocks first. So with doing that and working through that process, like for a new person that is, potentially hesitant of giving out that pricing where it's like, hey, it may not be starting here. It may be we need to start here, but to get to your end goal that you're saying that you're wanting, you need to do these first, second, third things first. Like, how do you position, a black sheep salesperson to be okay with selling on those stepping blocks to grow those leads in?
Yeah, it's just one of those things where you can tell people, but until they experience it, do they really realize? And they have to experience it multiple times. So you try to sell somebody on the whole thing and they don't move forward, or you try to sell them on the whole thing and they move forward and refund, or you bring somebody in who's not a fit and they end up being just a huge pain in the ass and costing you money. It's one of those things where you can tell people that's going to happen, but you don't really believe it until you do it. And then you do it again like 2 times. And then you'll do it again a few years later. It's like the lesson that you never stop learning. But hopefully, you can take what we're saying to heart and avoid all of that pain.
Take it from all of us. We've all owned businesses and own businesses. Yeah. Learn our lessons.
Yeah. It's just hard when money is right in front of you. You're like, yeah, wait, I can go out of scope for you. Like, yeah, let me add that. We could do that. We don't usually, but
That lesson is going to get repeated until you learn it.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Aleasha, one of the things you talk about a lot, and I love this, is the repelling and attracting aspect. And this is something like we leverage this heavily in PR, because the bigger you get, you're going to get the people who love you and you're going to get the people who hate you. Right. And that's all part of the equation. So what advice do you have for people to not only attract the right people, but also to repel the wrong ones?
That's also one of those things that I think is a gradual evolution that you learn. It's been an evolution for me for a long time. It's about how you present yourself online and being able to plant your flag and say, I'm not about this. Like when I got into sales consulting, everybody was going bananas for this thing called pain selling, or the cost of inaction. And it's actually a sales strategy from life insurance when salesmen used to go door to door and just scare the shit out of housewives about what would happen and how they would be destitute and their kids would be on the street if their husband ever died and stuff like that. And they've adapted it to a lot of different sales conversations. And I was just like, y'all, this is not the way. This is not the only way. Like, maybe it works for some people. I would say it's the minority of people. You have to be very skilled to pull this off. Most people hate making someone feel terrible in any kind of conversation. And just being able to be really loud about the idea that there's an alternative. And this is something that I've gotten so much more passionate about when it comes to Black sheep in general, because when you show up and say, this is what I'm into and this is what I'm not into, and you like on the other side of the fear of personal rejection is freedom. Like, you're able to say like this, I don't know, like if you are a fan of just relentlessly pursuing profit as your only goal, that's not me. Okay. So we all deserve to find our people. Or like, if you are someone who really likes being prim and proper, I'm going to offend you. Like, you deserve to be with someone who is super buttoned up, and like, no shame to it. It's just about fit.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. So how can like people know then when it is the wrong fit? Like, are there questions to ask that they should have in like their discovery process or potential like sales calls where you can identify that kind of spot on? Or is it just coming out through the conversation and it's a vibe kind of check?
I mean, usually you do get a vibe, I will say. And that's something that your gut gets way better the more you do this. But you have a gut instinct even in the very beginning, like, but usually when working with a client, it is about understanding that criteria for fit and not a fit, and then designing questions around it. So, I mean, one of the big ones for you, Jessica, is like, when do you need that result? What result are you looking for? So you can check if it's realistic, and when do you need that result would be a big one. And then, do you have somebody on staff who can get us assets and stuff? Because if you don't have that, it's going to be really hard. I mean, for Jeremy, I can only imagine that it's about having a brand of some kind. Do you have a message? Do you have an audience? If you don't have that stuff, I can't really, work with you yet. You need to work with someone else on that stuff first. So in the discovery process with a client, I get really deep into like the best way to understand this is who are the people who are really happy with the results, and what are the patterns, and who are the people who are not happy with results, and what were the patterns, and then you find questions around it.
100%. That's some of the stuff that we've like added into our discovery questionnaire before we work with a client, because I want to know, do they care about their team, their culture, right? Like, do they already have that set up? Do they already have a brand manifesto? Like, where are they at the beginning stages of the relationship marketing, like tier that we can bring them into, and like what our expertise is? And because I want to know like how much they understand about that. So it's not so much about like, what are you looking for, a social website, whatever, video, but what do you already have in place that shows that you actually care about your team, your community, your clients that you're already serving, and how can we help you elevate from there? So I add those questions in. But a lot of it, I think, of course, anybody can answer a form, but I think coming from the conversational standpoint, then you do get more of an understanding of, is this legit, or is this just, lip service that they're saying? And again, like what you're saying, potentially refer them on to someone else and not get so attached to just close the sale for money, because it is a time waste and a profit waste at the end of the day, because you'll spend more time and be miserable with the wrong people. But for the black sheep sales method, for all of those that are of you that are watching in live and also watching the replay, where can people find out more about this and learn about the right way of doing sales?
Yeah. So I have a podcast, Sales is Not a Dirty Word. And I usually recommend going to that How to Sell Like a Natural episode. And it really lays out the overall concept of this fitting approach. And then from there, there's just short 10-minute episodes that you can listen to. And then, of course, my book, Black Sheep Sales. How to win more sales without acting like a douchebag. Really breaks it down. Thanks. And I even have an audiobook now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, something I want to point out real quick here is, so for all the audience who's watching us, whether it's live or after the fact, there's some subtlety to this interview that I think may go unnoticed by a lot of people. So I want to specifically point this out, right? And part of this is brand, but I think it goes a lot deeper. It's business ethos, right? So when somebody thinks of a sales consultant, a sales expert, they're going to think of somebody who's going to just be out there pounding the streets and just doing whatever they can do to get all the revenue in possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're not taking that approach. You've got this, you talked about empathy, right? So you're staying away from tactics that you find sleazy, right? You talked about really finding the right clients, not just taking anyone who'll pay revenue, right? That's not something most people do. That's something, and if you do it the wrong way, if you do take on these shitty clients who aren't a fit, then not only do you have all the headaches, but you also have unhappy clients. And that means bad reviews or no reviews, either way. But like, this is just an example of really living true to the brand that you're talking about. And, that's something that I think a lot of people may not really pick up on the subtlety of that, but you're living what you're talking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really important to me. Every time I've ever worked with someone, they take less sales calls and they make more sales every single time. So
efficiency for the win.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people like to say sales is a numbers game, and it is a numbers game in the way that, like, I take this many calls and this many convert. And so blah, blah, blah. But a lot of times people are like, well, I take 10 calls and I convert 2. So if I want 4 sales, I need 20 calls. And it's like, no, there's something wrong with who you're targeting or your messaging or your offer if you're converting like that. And people can feel that difference when somebody is just treating you like a number, as opposed to excitement that you're actually the person that this is my sweet spot. This is my zone of genius. Yeah. And I love what you're doing, and this is why, and how to support it. People can feel that difference.
They can feel when you get excited about it. And that's what makes them want to leave a review, but also refer you on. And I think I read a stat, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, with using this method, your black sheep sales method, or just being a good human is how I like to describe it. Like, you're saying like 80% of your clients are closing.
They close 80%. Yeah, it happens every time. Yeah.
That is an insane closing ratio.
I mean, when you can communicate your value to the right person, like, a lot of people there's also this issue where people focus too much on deliverables. They don't ask a lot of questions that help them understand where the other person's at. So, and they don't know which parts to talk about. So they're kind of just telling them everything. There's all kinds of things that people are accidentally doing.
Yeah, because they've been taught the wrong way of selling for a long time. I remember just in my telecommunication days, it was all about like the technology. I'm like, nobody cares how it works. They just want to know, when we first days of telecommunications, when text messaging and photo messaging and data were coming out, they didn't care how it worked, but they cared that, I can actually respond to my company emails while being at my son's soccer game and still be in contact. Like, that's what resonated with them, not how the technology worked. But you have to speak in a language that also is going to, resonate with the person that is trying to get something accomplished that they aren't able to accomplish right now, but speak in their language.
You have great instincts, Jessica. And this is what happens a lot, is that some sales expert is like, no, this is what you have to do. And they're like, they think that they know, and they think that this is the way, and they like can't hear anything else. And it's about their agenda versus the salesperson, the prospect's agenda. And It's not that you let the prospect just take the call and run it, but you definitely want to understand what that person cares about and tailor the conversation to that.
100%. Yes.
Love it.
So, well, Aleasha, if people want to find out more about you, I can't believe it's already been 30 minutes that we've been on this call. And I'm excited to chat with you tomorrow, because we'll be working with Aleasha and Now Marketing Group as well, to help more of our clients discover this black sheep sales method. But Aleasha, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, I would say, the podcast, and also I'm on LinkedIn. I think that's like my main social media that I like. So find me over there. I mean, DM me. I'd love to talk to you about things. But if you are finding that you hate sales, it's probably because you're doing something unaligned, or you don't have a strategy at all and you're just winging it.
Yeah. Definitely. And we'll do a blog recap of this as well as the replay of the video, and then link Aleasha's LinkedIn channel and her podcast and the link to her book as well. So if you want it, type I want it in the comments, and I'll also put the link to the long game where you could subscribe to the next episodes and the recap of this episode. Anything else, Jeremy, that you wanted to ask before we close it out?
No, I would just encourage the audience to go connect with her on LinkedIn. And I haven't seen your social yet, but from what you've shared on this interview so far, I can tell people are going to learn a lot from your content. So I encourage everyone to go check her out, follow her, and check out the podcast too.
Thanks.
Awesome.
It's pretty bold. So that's one of the things that I've had to embrace is like, I look really normal, like suburban, you know, and then I talk and everyone's like, whoa, she is very direct and honest.
It's trustworthy. And that's why I love you.
If somebody doesn't like that, then we're not a fit, and that's okay.
It's the only way to be.
That's the only way to be you. And excited to have you back at Social Media Week Lima 2026 as well. So if you guys want to hang out with Aleasha and hear her boldness, you can join us in June at Social Media Week Lima. But until then, drop your comments or questions for Aleasha in the chat, and I will link her socials here shortly. Thanks, everyone, for joining in with us this week, and we'll see you back next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks, Aleasha.
Everyone.